In this video, I'm going to share 10 money hacks which turned me from a financially irresponsible college student into someone who is intently working towards financial freedom. These are money hacks which I actively use on a day-to-day basis and can easily be applied to your life. If you start using these hacks, not only will you have more money in your pocket, but you'll also be taking the first step towards being financially secure in the future. Before we get started, let me know if you use any money hacks that have improved your life, and if so, leave a comment describing the hack and how other people can apply it to their lives too. Alright, so the first money hack on the list is investing. Investing is something that we've all heard about on TV and in movies. When you hear the word investing, you might think of Wall Street, big boards with lots of flashing numbers and complicated looking charts. And if you're not familiar with that world as an onlooker, it can be hard to imagine how you fit in. But nonetheless, investing is critically important, and let me explain why. Most people tend to keep the majority, if not all, of their money in bank accounts. We have this false sense of security in thinking that because our money is in the bank, it's safe and protected. But that couldn't be further from the truth. You see, bank accounts offer very little in the way of growth for our money. And just like how water is essential for the survival of a plant, growth is essential for the survival of our money. The reason why is inflation. Inflation describes the increase in the prices of goods and services in the economy. Over time, things become more expensive, and the money which we have today will have less of an ability to buy things in the future because of inflation. What that means is that if your money isn't growing, you're guaranteed to lose out to inflation. So by keeping all of our money in the bank, which offers no growth, we're more or less dooming our future selves financially. That was me 5 years ago, keeping all of my money in the bank and giving it no opportunity to grow. Then I found investing. Investing in the stock market allows your money to grow in two ways. Number one, the price of the stocks which you invest in increases over time, which in turn increases the value of your money. Number two, the company whose stock you've invested in may decide to pay you a reward for owning the stock, resulting in your money generating more money. That's what's known as a dividend, and when you take that dividend and reinvest it right back into the stock, over time, that's when crazy growth starts to happen. Investing in the stock market for the average person today is more accessible than any other period of time in history. We have apps like Robinhood in the US or DeGiro and Book0 in Europe, which allow us to access the global stock markets at the touch of a button. Plus, you can get started investing with as little as $1 or €1. Even though over time you'll need to invest larger amounts if you want to see solid returns, you can at least get started and test the waters with smaller amounts. Inflation has been a hot topic for a while now, and we don't know how long high inflation will last for. So now more than ever, it's crucially important that we're all taking steps to protect the value of our money. Get started investing. If you want to learn more about what to invest in, check out the video popping up on screen now. Next up on the list is avoiding debt and bad credit. Many of us may like the idea of borrowing money to buy things that we otherwise couldn't afford today. You get what you want, while how you pay for it and how much you pay becomes tomorrow's problem. You might borrow money for a new car, a new house, or an expensive holiday. But I'm here to tell you that you should be doing everything in your power to avoid borrowing money insofar as possible. Here's why. Borrowing money comes with a cost, and that cost is interest. It's a relatively straightforward concept that many of us are familiar with. When you repay borrowed money, you don't simply repay the exact amount you borrowed. There's always an additional amount above what you originally took on. That additional amount is interest, which is the cost of the money you borrowed. Now, the first reason why you should avoid borrowing money is because interest is expensive. The interest rate which is charged on your loan is influenced by separate interest rates which are set by global central banks, like the US Federal Reserve in the States and the European Central Bank in Europe. When these central banks decide to increase interest rates, which they're doing now, the cost of borrowing money from regular old banks goes up, meaning for the likes of you and me, we'll be repaying the banks more interest and will have less money in our pockets. That brings me on to the second reason why you should avoid borrowing money, because it limits your ability to do other things with your money. We just talked about the importance of investing, but it becomes so much harder to get started if you're forking out lots of money to banks each month repaying loans. Any financial advisor will tell you that in order to improve your financial situation, you need to prioritize paying off any high interest loans because they make everything so much harder. So avoid getting into that position in the first place. But the third reason why you should avoid borrowing money is to avoid bad credit. Bad credit comes from failing to repay the money you owe on time. When that happens, it impacts your credit history. Your credit history is used by lenders when they're trying to figure out whether or not they want to give you a loan. Having a bad credit history may result in you being refused loans in the future. So if you just avoid borrowing money unnecessarily, then you won't risk having a bad credit history for when you really need to borrow. And yes, before anyone says it, I know in the US it's sometimes advisable to take out a credit card in order to start building a credit score for getting a loan. But not every country uses a credit score, and many lenders only care about bad credit. So don't be taking out a credit card if you don't need to. Next is practicing frugality. Frugality is defined as the quality of being economical with money or food and having a sense of thriftiness. For me, frugality is all about knowing what you tend to spend money on and figuring figuring out A, whether those things are truly necessary, and if they are, B, how you can make that spending as cheap as possible without any massive sacrifices to your standard of living. When asking yourself whether or not something is truly necessary in your life, think about the value which it brings you. There's a great quote from Warren Buffett referencing his teacher Benjamin Graham, where he says, "Price is what you pay, value is what you get." Whether we're talking about socks or stocks, I like buying quality merchandise when it's marked down. In other words, price is what gets deducted from your bank account, but value is what gets added to your life. Sure, you can buy expensive watches, cars, and clothes, but how much value do those things bring to your life, especially in relation to cheaper alternatives? How do you define what's valuable to you? Is value defined as a measure for happiness, social status, appearance? Are you buying things that aren't truly valuable to you in order to impress people that probably don't care? There are lots of unanswered questions when it comes to our spending habits, and in order to be frugal, you need to come up with the answers. Now imagine being in a position where you're confident that what you tend to spend money on is necessary and adds true value to your life. At that stage, practicing frugality really just comes down to being cost conscious. Can I get this item or an equivalent item at a cheaper price elsewhere? Do I really need to replace my existing items now, or can I get a bit more use out of them? Being frugal is as important as avoiding debt for similar reasons, because just like debt, unnecessary spending limits our ability to do great things with the money we have. Alright, the next money hack on the list is probably one of the most important. But before we talk about it, if you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I upload multiple personal finance videos per week, and I'm also a qualified financial advisor, so you're getting lots of free information from a source you can trust. With that being said, let's talk about retirement savings. Saving for retirement has arguably never been more important in human history than it is today. Let me explain why. Chances are you're probably unaware that we have a fairly serious retirement crisis on our hands. Global populations are aging, meaning people are living longer and spending more time in retirement. Obviously, from a medical science perspective, that's amazing, but from a financial perspective, it causes problems. The first problem is that with more people in retirement relative to the amount of workers in the workforce, government support schemes for retirees become unstable. What that means is that the payments from the government to support you in retirement are not as guaranteed as they once were. The second problem is that with people spending more time in retirement, that's more years of living that they need to pay for. And if you're to assume that government support alone won't be sufficient to maintain your standard of living in retirement, which it won't, that leaves you with your own private retirement savings. When we talk about saving for retirement, we're not talking about stockpiling lots of cash in a bank account for the future. We've already established that inflation makes that a non-feasible option. Instead, we're again talking about making investments with our money today for the benefit of our future self. Check out the video popping up on screen now to learn more about the 10 most common mistakes that people make when investing for retirement. But what makes investing for retirement more of a money hack than regular old investing? Tax benefits. There are dedicated accounts that are used for retirement investing. 401ks and Roth IRAs in the States, SIPs and workplace pensions in the UK, PRSAs and occupational schemes in Ireland. It just depends on where in the world you live. But the one common characteristic that all of these accounts share is that they offer tax benefits to people who choose to invest money in them, meaning investing for retirement keeps more money in your pocket and less in the tax man's. Over time, this can result in you saving hundreds of thousands on your tax bill, so it's definitely something to get started on as soon as possible. Next up on the money hack list is being clever with salary increases. Let's face it, we all love being paid more to do our jobs, and naturally, over the course of your career, there will likely be many times where you get a pay increase. Your first inclination might be to spend the extra money on things you couldn't previously afford. In other words, you use the money to increase your standard of living, perhaps living at a more expensive property, eating more expensive food, whatever it may be. This is a very common response. In fact, it's so common that it has a name: lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep is defined as a phenomenon where an individual's standard of living improves as their discretionary income rises, and former luxuries become new necessities. In other words, what was once a treat, like ordering takeout food once a week, is now a regular necessity, and you might find yourself ordering takeout food 2 or 3 times a week. Lifestyle creep is a big problem for 2 reasons. First of all, your increased spending can get out of control, and all of a sudden, you can find yourself with an unsustainably high standard of living. This is risky because should you lose your job or get a pay cut, you could be in a very tricky money situation. But secondly, lifestyle creep prevents you, once again, from doing great things with your money. The 2 secrets to success for investing are starting early and increasing the size of your investments over time. Lifestyle creep prevents you from increasing the amount of money that you're putting towards your investments, meaning that you're limiting your potential for investment returns by what could be hundreds of thousands over 30 or 40 years. So instead of spending your raises, ask yourself whether you really need to increase your standard of living, and if you don't, then allocate some or all of your raise to your investments. Alright, next up, creating additional income streams. Warren Buffett once said that if your salary is your only source of income, you're one step away from poverty. Now, obviously this statement is a bit of an over-exaggeration for most people, because it assumes that if you were to lose your job that you wouldn't be able to find another one, which again, for most people people isn't the case, but the sentiment behind the statement has some value. We should be trying to add as many income streams to our lives as possible and to increase the amount of income coming from existing streams. How do you go about doing that? Personally, I've started to create additional income streams through YouTube ad revenue, affiliate marketing, and contract work, all of which is built around my passion for producing financial education videos. That to me is the key. Passion. The logical starting point for creating new income streams is to build those streams around your passions. Why? Because creating meaningful sources of income takes time, resilience, adaptation, belief, and a whole pile more. It's not going to happen overnight. And so if you're not truly passionate about what you're trying to build, you're probably just going to give up when the going gets tough. There are endless amounts of YouTube videos which show you how to create so-called passive income streams. Check out the video popping up on screen if you want to hear why I believe that the message in most of these videos is a lie. But what viewers of these videos fail to realize is that just because one type of income stream worked for one person, that doesn't mean that it'll work for you. Perhaps the only income stream in existence which can be universally adopted is investment income. Beyond that, it's about creating income streams around your passion. As for increasing the amount of income coming from existing streams in an employment setting, the easiest way to do that is to ask for a raise. Now, I'm not so naive as to think that it's going to be as easy as that in every circumstance, but hear me out. Do your research. Are companies in your industry paying more for a similar role? Has your salary been increasing at a reasonable rate relative to inflation? Have you added extra quantifiable value to the company as a result of your performance? Is there a better job offer on the table that you could leverage? It's all about setting out what you want and then making a case as to why you think your wants are reasonable. Now let's talk about the money hack which brings all other hacks together. Budgeting. Budgeting is defined as the action of estimating income and expenses over a specified future period of time, and the resulting budget is usually compiled and reevaluated on a periodic basis. The reason why I've left budgeting to this point in the video is because we've talked about investing, retirement saving, being cost conscious, building income streams, avoiding debt, and budgeting is the money hack tool which allows us to see how we're going to make it all happen. Here's how. What you want to do is sit down and write out all of your expected monthly inflows and outflows of cash for the next 12 months. Everything from how much income you'll receive from your employment and other sources to how much you'll spend on housing costs, essentials, and discretionary expenses. Then, as the months start to pass, you want to review your budget and see what you actually ended up spending on various items compared to what you expected to spend. Are you spending too much on discretionaries? Are you neglecting your investments? Are you earning less than anticipated? All of this comes out in a budget and it allows you to plan and to change your course of direction if required. Personally, I like to set out a dream budget where I'm ambitious with how much I plan to allocate towards investments and quite conservative with how much I plan to spend on discretionaries. That way, I'm giving myself accountability and trying to strive towards being optimal with my money management. I might not achieve my dream budget, but I can at least see what I need to do in order to get there in the future. That's an important point when it comes to applying these money hacks. Depending on your financial situation, you might not be able to apply all of them right away. And even if you do apply them, like with any other changes to our routine, it takes time in order for them to become habits. So get started, stay consistent, and use a budget. Next up is automating your finances. One of the ways that we can stay consistent with positive money habits is by automating them so that we don't have to actively think about them on a regular basis. Take investing, for example. Once you figure out what it is that you want to invest in, many brokerage platforms will allow you to set up automated investments each and every month. European investors, for example, can use Book Zero for this purpose. Link in the description if you want to try it out. American investors can use Robinhood's automation features for automatically investing in both stocks and crypto. Point being, these tools can allow you to turn your monthly investments into a long-term habit. The same concept applies to saving money in the bank as part of an emergency fund and automating recurring monthly expenses so that you don't have to think about them. We are living in the digital age, and there's no excuse for not leveling up your money management game using the wide variety of mobile apps and web platforms that we have at our disposal. Do your research and figure out what platforms are available in your country that could make your life a whole lot easier. So the next money hack is a bit of a different one, and it's one that I've experienced and continue to experience firsthand on a day-to-day basis. The hack is gradually moving towards a plant-based diet. There are many misconceptions about cutting meat from your diet, one of which is that a plant-based diet is always more expensive than a meat-based diet. Many surveys and research studies have actually shown that vegan, vegetarian, and flexitarian diets are more affordable than diets which make no effort to cut out meat. But I am aware that the cost of various diets will be different depending on where in the world you live. For example, in the US between April 2021 and April 2022, Vox noted that chicken prices and beef prices had increased by 16.4% and 15% respectively. Now, obviously, inflation rates globally are at multi-decade highs, and the overall cost of food at home in the US during the same period increased by 11%. But the likes of beans, rice, bread, fruits, and vegetables, which are some of the cornerstone ingredients of a plant-based diet, had increased in price at a rate which was lower than the overall growth rate of grocery prices. Marco Springman, a researcher from the University of Oxford, found that flexitarian diets diets, that is diets which at least make some effort to reduce meat intake, reduce costs by 14% in high income countries, while vegan diets cut costs by nearly 33%. Marco told Vox that in the US, a flexitarian diet could reduce costs by as much as 25%. This is definitely something that I can attest to here in Ireland as well. My girlfriend is vegetarian, and naturally when we're together we cook vegetarian meals. And what I found is that not only are the meals healthier, better for the environment, and in most cases nicer than meat-based meals, but they're also far less expensive. If this is something you'd like to try out for yourself, I'll leave some recipes that we personally use on screen now. These are really tasty meals that can be made at low cost while also being better for your health and the environment. Alright, so we've come to the final money hack on the list. If you've made it this far, you're clearly finding value in the video, and so I would encourage you to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this in the future. Let me know in the comment section what your favorite money hack has been today and what one you plan on using first. Thanks for doing that, and now let's discuss financial education. Financial education is the #1 money hack on this list which has changed my life in the biggest way. Everything that I have on this channel, that I have in the form of investments and savings, and that I have in terms of my understanding of money and its purpose has come from financial education. An American philosopher by the name of John Dewey once said that education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. For me, without continuous education, we can't live life to its fullest potential because we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to do so through knowledge. Knowledge of what's out there and of what's possible. Likewise, without financial education, we can't possibly expect our money to live up to its true potential because we don't have the knowledge tools required to make that happen. So how does one become financially educated, and how much education is required? Frankly, if you're watching this video, you're already on the right path. Watching content from reliable sources, keeping up to date with financial news and understanding how it impacts you, constantly challenging your understanding of fundamental topics like investing and retirement planning and the principles which underpin them. These are all ways that you can actively be improving your financial literacy. And as for how much education is required, sky's the limit. What's most important is that you start early and stay consistent, because just like investing, that's how you'll reap the biggest rewards. So that's 10 money hacks that have changed my life, and I really do hope that you've enjoyed the video here today. As always, if you did enjoy the video, please do let me know in the comment section below. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!